Hello, this is Patrick in Washington with the Tri-Cities Insight, and today we are with the Commonwealth's attorney in Petersburg, Virginia, Miss Cheryl Wilson.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Cheryl Wilson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Can you tell us a little something about yourself, Miss Cheryl Wilson? Introduce yourself to our listeners.
Okay, great. My name is Cheryl Wilson, and I am now the Commonwealth Attorney of the City of Petersburg, and I am very humbled by this experience. I was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. Went to Huguenot High School, for those who know it. Graduated from Union University in 1985, and then I went to law school at T.C. Williams, University of Richmond, and graduated in 1988. After that, I went into private practice for about 3 years, and I was fortunate enough to have, some mentors who did things for me and, got me started and put me on the right track. And what I actually loved the most was criminal law. So back in 1991, I came to Petersburg. I began working in the public defender's office, and I worked there for approximately 3 years, defending persons charged with criminal offenses. I did just about every type of case there was, and even though I was there only 3 years, I did capital cases, I did murder cases, very serious violent offenses. And then in 1994, I came to work in the Petersburg Commonwealth Attorney's office, and that's where I've been ever since. So I've been here for 23 years. 17 of those years, I've been the Deputy Commonwealth Attorney. And during that time, I have tried anything from capital murder all the way down to traffic offenses. I have the experience in anything that you could find in the Code of Virginia. I've probably tried it.
Now, it's different being on the other side of the bench between being a defense attorney and being the Commonwealth's attorney.
Yes.
What would you say? Yeah, how is it much different, or what have you learned, or what have you carried from your experienced defense attorney over to Commonwealth attorney as a
Well,
prosecutor?
as a prosecutor, we are responsible for the entire docket. Whatever comes in that courtroom, we have to be prepared for. We're also responsible for ensuring that first, when a warrant is taken out by the police department, there is probable cause there. So we look at those cases, we make sure that there's probable cause before we go forward. And then we're responsible for proving our cases beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's a burden that, we welcome. The defense does not have to necessarily do that. So I didn't have to do that when I was a defense attorney. I had to ensure that my client's rights were protected, of course, as any defense attorney would do. But as a prosecutor, we've got, our ethical duties that you have as a defense attorney, but we have additional ethical duties that we have as prosecutors to ensure that we're prosecuting people and we have the evidence to actually prove it. Now, obviously, the decision is going to be a judge or a jury, but when we start out, we want to make sure we're doing justice and then we're making the process fair.
Now, as defense attorney, can you give us an example of some cases that really that left a feeling with you, or left some type of that you continue to keep with you today?
Okay. The case that comes right to mind is it was actually a capital murder case, and I was second chair, meaning there was another attorney who was more experienced that was sitting first chair, and it was actually conducting the majority of the trial. I did parts of the trial. I interviewed witnesses, obviously spoke with my client, but it stuck with me because this was a case that happened at Virginia State, or these were Virginia State students. It was 3 or 4 different defendants, and of course our office had one of them. And even though he was charged with these horrific offenses, that would probably, repel most people, I got to know him, I got to know his mom, I got to know, all of his family, and it touched me in a way that I realized that everybody deserves representation, everybody deserves competent representation, and you have to do your best, irregardless of what your thought process is on what you feel they may have done. Even though what was alleged was very horrible, somebody's life was taken, this was still a person that I had to deal with. He had a family, he had people that cared about him, and I've carried that over into, what I do today.
So what got you into the other side of the bench? What appealed from being a defense attorney and now a prosecutor? What made you want to go from defense attorney to prosecutor?
One of the things that I thought about when I actually took this job was, could I do this? I was used to defending people. I was used to ensuring that their rights were protected. But could I be the person that actually, potentially sent someone away for a very long time? And what I realized is that even on either side you're on, justice still has to be done. There's still a victim on this side. There may be a defendant over here, but everybody deserves to have representation. And I looked at it in terms of I'm representing the citizens, whoever they may be. It might be a victim of violent crime, or it may be a store owner who had their store broken into. Whoever it was deserved to have someone who was compassionate and caring about what occurred to them. And so I decided to switch, and I've never gone back.
Now, you just became Commonwealth's attorney this year.
That's right.
Now, Ms. Wilson, what do you feel your role as Commonwealth's attorney here in Petersburg, which is known for being a high crime area,
Right.
compared to the other localities in the area, Colonial Heights, Hopewell, and some even say Richmond. What do you find, what would you say is your role as Commonwealth's attorney here in Petersburg?
Well, first and foremost, my role is to see that justice is done and that the process is fair for everyone. That includes on the Commonwealth side and especially on the defense side. My role, I take an oath. I raise my hand and I swear to uphold the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, we may not always agree with what those laws are, but I have sworn to uphold those. I also believe that part of my duties are to ensure that the citizens are safe, and that includes all of us, whether we're living here, residing here, working here, or just visiting here. When you come into Petersburg, we want you to be safe. So therefore, I have to have connections, not just with the people in my office, but with the police department. And our office has a very good relationship with the police department. What we have started now is community policing. And that term we already know, but we're calling it community policing because we're ensuring that when they have roll call, we go. 8:30 at night, 8:30 in the morning, because we want to know what's going on right then and there. When they get off their shift, what did you all encounter? When they get off their shift in the morning, what did you all encounter? So that we can have firsthand knowledge of it. And then we're also going out to the neighborhood watches. We're going to the ward meetings. I haven't made it to all the neighborhood watches, but I'm on a lot of their lists because we want to make sure that the community is involved and that we get feedback from them so that we know exactly what's going on, in real time, so to speak. So those are some of the things.
So you're saying that you have a good operational relationship with the police,
I
right?
do.
Now, couple of years, recently, there are police brutality, police situations, and some of it is even in Petersburg. Now, how would you how have you addressed it over the years to bring the police community and the minority community together?
Right. I don't know that Petersburg has necessarily had police brutality. Now, granted, it's all in the news everywhere. I think those are isolated incidences. The police department here, I think, has done a very good job of going out in the community, speaking with them. I think the community recognizes, with all of the other issues that are going on with the city, that we have less officers to do the job than we had before, and they're doing the best that they can. They're going out, they're talking, they're trying to connect with the community, and I think there's been a good response with that. But to answer your question, if it doesn't matter to me if you're a police officer or who you may be, everybody should be treated the same. So if you do something that is against the law, I don't have a problem bringing charges and prosecuting you. In fact, I've done that. I have prosecuted police officers. Those were ones who were not following the law and not doing the things that they needed to do
Here in Petersburg?
here in Petersburg.
Okay. Now, with that, also as Commonwealth's attorney, and you said you also reach out to neighborhood watches. Now, your role as Commonwealth's attorney, what will you do, or what have you done to actually grow neighborhood watches here in Petersburg?
Well, what I've been doing personally is just making sure I'm going there. I want to explain to them what our office does. I want to give them the opportunity to ask questions of me if they have concerns and things in their neighborhood. And then I can sit there, what I've done is sit there and listen to what they have to say, what they see in their neighborhoods. And a couple of times, I was able to bring the police involved, call them and say, this is what they're saying, and they've been able to go out and solve those issues. So now I'm on their list, so I get emailed right along with everybody else as to, what's going on in their neighborhoods. And we want to know that, because if I don't hear about it, if no one's arrested, just because shots are fired, if it's not in my area, I wouldn't necessarily know. I want to know that that's going on so that, I can work with the police, that we can concentrate a little bit more in that area to see what's going on, to keep people safe. Nobody wants to hear shots at night.
Oh, yes. Now, what is the process you go to before you decide to file charges against a person?
Well, the majority of the cases that come through us are as a result of what the police do. They're out in the neighborhoods, someone calls, they go arrest someone for assault, or they go arrest someone for breaking into someone's home, or whatever it may be. Now, there are those situations where we can do indictments in regards to, criminal activity that's going on in the city. The process is the same either way. There has to be probable cause. So in other words, when the police do it, it's based on witnesses saying this is what happened, and then they take that person to the magistrate's office, and the magistrate makes that determination. If our office does it, we talk to the witnesses, we talk to the victims, we make sure that there is probable cause once again, and then we do the indictment and present it before the court. I mean, any time it's still going to go before a grand jury at some point, if it's a felony in circuit court, and that's you. That's the public. The public is to make a determination as to whether or not they feel that evidence reaches the standard of probable cause, and then it's set for trial.
So how often do you have cases or instances that lead up to cases, especially here in Petersburg? Like you said, shots fired somewhere in Walnut Hill, or
Right.
Domestic abuse, or how often do those instances actually evolve or grow or develop into actual full-blown cases?
Right. Probably more than I would like to see. Domestic assault cases, which is something very personal to me in the sense that I want to ensure that whether it be a man or a woman, because both can be subjected to that, have the tools necessary to make the right decision. And by that I mean, a lot of times when a domestic violence victim comes in here, they will say, even though you can see that physically something has happened, they still don't want to proceed, with the charges. And we recognize that the reason may be because maybe they love that person. That's fine. And I'm not trying to get in the middle of, their family dynamics in that sense. Or maybe because of financial situations, that person is who they have to rely on, to keep a roof over their head or put food in their children's mouth. Or they're just mentally not in a place to actually realize that it probably isn't the healthiest situation to be in. I mean, even though we have a victim witness office contained within my own office, and they can provide out counseling, and sometimes we can pay for medical bills, and we they always go to court with these victims and the witnesses. That still sometimes is not enough. So, what our office has tried to do is partner with organizations that may have funds to be able to assist and give them some opportunities to make some other options. For example, CARES, maybe they can get transitional housing, or the James House, once again, transitional housing, counseling, so that they have an option not to have to go back to that situation and hopefully go ahead and proceed, with the trial. We have a no drop policy on domestic violence cases. So, and we explain that to them. We don't force anyone to come forward and testify, but physically, and we can probably go forward without them actually having to testify.
No drop policy. Explain that a little bit more.
Well, that just means that in certain situations, especially domestic violence, we recognize, that the victim may not necessarily want to proceed. Yeah. And we're not holding that against them, but we don't want to have a situation where we drop it because you don't want to proceed, and we can physically, see your injuries, and then later it comes back. Now we're dealing with a different type of case.
So it's up to your discretion, or could we say up to your discretion? And even with homicide and other cases. Now, in Petersburg, are there a lot of domestic abuse cases?
There are a number, yes.
But what is the main type of cases here in Petersburg?
I mean, when I first came here, it was probably more drug-related type offenses, and that doesn't mean we don't have drug cases here. Opioid abuse is probably a serious issue that doesn't just affect Petersburg, but affects everybody.
Yeah, just recently, I believe it was Sunday, right?
Yeah, a couple of that overdosed, and I think one did survive, but yeah, two overdosed right here in Petersburg.
Yeah. Are you pursuing charges, or how is the Commonwealth Attorney office?
Well, the police are still investigating that. This is a situation where you go into a hotel room or wherever, and there is, unfortunately, in this situation, you have deceased persons. So there's no necessarily, unfortunately, somebody lost their life as a result, more than likely, of a bad batch of drugs. But now the cases that we see more of are, probably gang-related or some type of shooting-related cases, and we will prosecute those. And by that I mean, we will do what's right and what's fair. Doesn't necessarily mean, in violent cases, we're probably going to be tough. You've got a gun, and if somebody's getting injured, we're probably going to be tough. However, in other type of cases, we want to look at
drug-related cases.
Yeah, we want to
a little
look
bit more lenient.
We may be a little bit more lenient, but what I want to do is see what is going on with that individual. Are they ready to get some type of treatment? And, that's usually a personal thing. Are you willing to get treatment? Then I'm willing, to work with you.
Now, you were telling us that you do have programs to help people to get treatments. Are there other programs to help people that not just the victims but perpetrators of certain crimes too?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that we're working on, there are programs all over. They may not necessarily be here in Petersburg, but I have no problem if a defense attorney wants to come to me and say, this is what's going on with this particular person. This is what's going on in his life. He has, mental issues, or he may have some, drug abuse issues, whatever they may be. We're willing to work with them if they're willing to get the treatment, to get the help. A lot of times they find their own treatment, and then we will look at it to see, what is this? Is it actually a valid place? Are they actually getting treatment? We're more than willing to look and see what other options there are. We live in Petersburg, so there are not a lot of funds for things. So we have to become a little bit more creative in the things that we can do. But we're more than willing to look at those options. Everybody doesn't have to go to the penitentiary. Everybody doesn't have to have a felony. It really, that's not the goal. You know, the goal is to make sure that, you know, justice is done, is fair, and if we can get people back into a positive state and that they're contributing to the community, that's better. But if they're going to come back and, you know, repeat and do the same
do
thing,
the same over again.
yeah, then that's an issue. And,
Now, Petersburg do have an issue with repeat offenders, unfortunately. Now, is there, even with repeat offenders, as Commonwealth's attorney, you're the prosecutor. How are you trying your best to keep Petersburg safe from people that are repeat offenders?
right. Well, I mean, if you're continuously coming back, more than likely the amount of time that you're going to get is going to increase. You could potentially be show caused, you know, for the suspended time that's hanging over your head. You know, everybody has the option or the choice to either, you know, get it right. We all make mistakes, you know, but if you continue to make those same mistakes, then maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe, you know,
It's something in there.
yeah, it's
Character,
something,
yes.
yeah, that you're choosing to do. So at that point, you might have to go away for a little bit longer.
So, do you ask your team in certain instances like that to ask for more time or ask for tougher penalties when it comes down to repeat offenders?
Well, I mean, each individual we look at on an individual basis. I mean, everybody's case is going to be different. Everybody's mitigating factors are going to be different. So, you know, yeah, we do look at each case, make a determination as to what we're going to request. Ultimately, it's going to be up to the judge or a jury to make a decision as to what they believe the appropriate punishment should be. That's really not going to be up to me. You know, if a judge is trying it, then he's going to make that decision. But hopefully we'll be able to present him, this is what we're dealing with, this is what the situation is, and they're going to see the record. And we do have guidelines here in the state of Virginia, you know,
yes.
and they're prepared for everyone. So that's a factor in how much that person may or may not receive if they're found guilty.
Now, as Deputy Commonwealth's Attorney, because you just recently became Commonwealth's Attorney, what was your successful prosecution rate?
I did not keep track, but let's just say I was very successful. You know, if I went in, I wanted to make sure that I had the evidence. And as I said, if you don't, or if you don't have the witnesses, or if things are changing, then you have to reevaluate. But, you know, I have prosecuted thousands of cases, capital murder, manslaughter, all the way down to traffic things, robberies, gang cases, gang homicides. I've done all of those cases over the years that I've been here, and I've been pretty successful at that.
Now, do you see Petersburg getting safer since you first became to the Commonwealth's Attorney in 1991, right?
Here in 1994.
1994?
Yeah.
Do you see Petersburg safer since?
It's a little bit different. I think the crime rates are down. It's just the type of offenses that we see more of. You know, you do see more cases related to guns, you know, than I did when I first came here. Like I said, when I first came here, it was more drugs. Not that we didn't have gun cases, not that we didn't have shootings, but now it tends to be more of that type of activity. Unfortunately, we do have gang activity, and there's nothing wrong with belonging to a gang. The police department can be considered a gang. As long as you're not doing criminal activity, then okay. But unfortunately, when you're doing it and you're shooting back and forth, that's what we're seeing a lot of.
But I want to make sure you're saying there's nothing wrong. A violent gang.
Right.
Yeah, you can't be a part.
You can't be a part of that.
Violent gang.
Right.
Now, with gang violence, especially in Petersburg, do you see it going up, especially in Petersburg within the last year, or?
I don't know that necessarily that it's going up, but it does exist. And, you know, we're working with the police department to try to quelch that. Unfortunately, when you get rid of one group, and by that I mean if you prosecute one group, another group
Comes up.
comes up. So, and that's not just Petersburg.
Yes, that's all over.
That's all over.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
Now, you were Cassandra's, can I say, hand-picked successor? Is
If you'd like, I think I consider myself to be chosen by the circuit court because of my experience and my knowledge and working with them. They know what I can do, and they could have picked anyone, but they chose me.
now with when Cassandra resigned, and did she come to you and say that she wants you to succeed her, or?
Well, of course, she was wanting to see me succeed. Yes.
What were your thoughts when you first found out? Or
Well, when
you,
I first found out she was retiring, I was very surprised. We had been working together, or known each other for 26 years, and working together for 23 years. So I figured we would probably retire together. We had been together all that time. So I was surprised, but I mean, she has,
especially in the middle of a term, and this is the
but she has other opportunities that she wanted to fulfill, or, and her husband, and other things that she wanted to do, and she had been doing it for 26 years. So that was her decision, and
But
I was
when-
surprised.
But when you get the call and they said you're going to be the next Commonwealth attorney, what thoughts were in your head?
It was like, okay. I mean, I was very humbled by that. It's a lot to bear, but I know that I'm ready to do it. I've been here all this time. I've been right beside her. We tried cases together. We probably could finish each other's sentences. That's how much time, we spent together. So I was surprised in some sense, but I was very happy. I was honored. I was privileged. And I knew I could do the job. I knew I had the experience to do it.
Now, so would you say that your term or your tenure would be an extension of Cassandra's, or do you see it a different direction? Or?
No, I don't see it an extension of Cassandra's, because I'm very proud of the things that she accomplished. But I do have my own ideas and my own accomplishments. So I'm running as for Commonwealth attorney.
In your own right.
In my own right, yes.
Now, your opponent, Lee Parker, is saying that Petersburg need a change, in which some people might say, yeah, Petersburg need a change. How would you respond to your opponent?
Well, I don't necessarily respond to him, but what I say is whoever is Commonwealth attorney has to have the experience, the leadership abilities, the knowledge, and should have been able to try criminal cases. I don't know what experience my opponent has. What I can say is you cannot equate. For example, if you have someone who does bankruptcy,
Yeah, that's a whole
different thing. And I really have not heard exactly what type of cases my opponent has done. Nothing to take away from him, because I think he's a really nice guy, a good father. But that doesn't equate to you being qualified to be Commonwealth attorney. I think you need to have had murder cases, and I don't know that he did or he didn't. I'm not saying that he hasn't. I think you need to have had jury trials. You need to have that type of experience because you're the person that is the chief law enforcement officer for the city of Petersburg. And taking nothing away from him, saying I need a change without necessarily saying what that change is or saying what your experience is in detail, because I've been very upfront about what my experience is. I've been very upfront about what my leadership abilities are. I've been in charge of a lot of things. Cassandra was my boss, but I was in charge of the attorneys and the support staff, making sure that things were running smoothly. I work closely with the courts. I work closely with the judges I set every single criminal case here in the city of Petersburg, in the circuit court. So anything that happens comes through me first. So I think whoever is Commonwealth attorney has to have that knowledge, has to have that experience, has to have tried certain types of cases. Doing a medical malpractice case is not the same as trying a murder case or trying a capital case. I've a capital case sat up in September for 30 days. You have to have specific knowledge to do those type of cases, and the chief law enforcement officer needs to know how to do that.
I definitely hear you. Now, 2018, if Cheryl Wilson is elected to a full term as Commonwealth's attorney, what would be Cheryl Wilson's mission as Commonwealth's attorney of the city of Petersburg?
Right. Well, my mission mainly is to keep all of us safe. I want to make sure we introduce programs that not only keep us safe, but help our youth, because we need to make sure that whatever issues they're going through, whatever has caused them to go out and do, illegal activities, that it doesn't affect them all the way through their lives. I want to make sure that we address whatever those issues are, whether it be family issues or whether it be, mental issues. I don't know what it may be, but we want to address those things so that we don't see them again as adults. Hopefully not see them again as adults. Also for our senior citizens, we want to make sure that they're protected. A lot of things happen, people call them, people show up at their houses. We see that type of activity going on, and, they're not being helped in any way. They're losing their money. They're, paying out money because somebody raked their yard and they think they have to pay. They don't have to. So we want to give more education out there so that they are aware of the scams and the things that are going on in the neighborhoods.
Especially phone scams.
Phone scams are a big issue, everywhere.
And then internet scams.
And then internet scams.
Now, piggybacking off of that, do you have a lot of cases dealing with the internet?
We do. Unfortunately, a lot of those deal more with adults. Yeah, well, they do that, but adults making contact with juveniles on the internet, because you could pretend to be whomever you want to be on the internet. And so, parents and guardians or whomever is monitoring, their child needs to ensure of who they're talking to or put some controls on those computers. Unfortunately, I've tried cases where, adult, and it's usually men, but adult men, predators. 50 years old, are having contact with, 13, 14-year-old girls or younger sometimes, deciding they want to meet up, and, that can obviously lead to situations that are dangerous for everyone, and we don't want to see that. We need to protect our children.
Now, you also got a nationwide case coming up. The Alexander Hill case. How are you preparing yourself, not only legally and not only professionally, but how are you preparing yourself mentally for that gruesome case, which I have to admit that I'm related to the people that were.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. How are you mentally preparing yourself for that case?
I am going through a lot of witnesses and talking with everybody, looking back over a lot of evidence, making determinations as to what witnesses we're going to call, what witness we are not going to call, technical witnesses, the ME, and other witnesses of that nature. And then, this is not my first capital murder case. I've tried capital murder cases before, so I know what it takes I'm prepared to deal with the emotional part of it, because I think people think, there is not one, but it is. It's hard to sit and listen to, even though I know everything about the case, still, once you're trying it, it's hard to sit and listen to people in that state talk about, their loved one
Yes.
and what happened to them. But I'm more than prepared to try the case. Like I said, I've done them before. It's not like it's second nature. I don't want to. I would prefer not to have them, but unfortunately, certain situations call for us to charge someone with capital murder and proceed as such, and that's what we're doing.
Now, Cheryl Wilson, Miss Cheryl Wilson, well, Commonwealth's Attorney Wilson.
Yes.
What do you have to say to the citizens of Petersburg, especially when they vote on June the 13th?
Okay.
That's only less than 2 weeks away.
It is. Well, hopefully they will vote for someone who has the experience, the knowledge, and the leadership abilities to do this job. This, to me, is not a job that you can leave to chance. I hope that that person can do it. I think I've proven that I can do the job. I've been doing it in a sense for the past 23 years, and that has been preparing me, for my stint now as Commonwealth Attorney. I hope that they will really look into the qualifications of all the candidates and, make an informed decision. And right now, I've been very forthcoming about my experience, about my qualifications, and hopefully everyone will do the same so that that decision can be made in a effective manner. So I hope people will come out and vote. At least participate in the process, and I think that they will.
Yeah, hopefully. You're expecting a high turnout here in
I
Petersburg?
don't know. Hopefully it won't rain. So I think rain tends to turn people off. So.
Well, thank you, Commonwealth's Attorney Cheryl Wilson, for speaking with Tri-Cities Insight. It's a lovely thank you. And we're going to wish you all the best on June the 13th.
Thank you.
Everybody in the city of Petersburg, June the 13th, 2017, less than 2 weeks away. Come out 6, polls open at 6 a.m., closes at 7 p.m.
Correct.
Y'all have a beautiful day.
Thank you.